Hi guys, welcome to my kitchen and welcome to Ignite. Let's go straight to the scoreboard. Charlotte, you are up to 39 points now. Nathan not far behind on 35, and Joshua, you are catching up with 20 points. Andrew not far behind there. Remember, when we get together as Ignite in the den at some point in the future when we can do it, there will be prizes for everybody on the scoreboard. So come and get some points. One of the ways you can do it is to spot the crazy fact that I hide in our WhatsApp Bible group in the Bible verses there. The clue for this week, so that the crazy fact that I hid last week, it has something to do with firemen. See if you can find that one and just let me know and I'll get you some points up. Another way to get points is to suggest ideas for what people can be doing during lockdown. Really important this week because we've had some lousy weather and most people are stuck inside. So the one thing that our guys came up with when we met on Wednesday on Jitsi was to do some board games. Get out the old family favourites. The guys have been really enjoying playing Scrabble and playing Risk. And also one of them was talking about the game, more sophisticated games that they play at Meeples. So some of those types of games are really great fun too and will while away the hours for you. We had a great time this week as we met as Ignite again on Jitsi. Had some great fun watching some Star Wars clips and talking about our faith. And we also looked up Kanye West and looked up some information about his faith. Definitely somebody to go and investigate and to follow and take a listen to his last album and see what those songs, those worship songs are like. They might be something you enjoy. So another way to get points is to give us some ideas of ways to help other people, especially your neighbours and your family who have been on their own for a long time now. One of the guys at Ignite on Wednesday was a really keen bike rider, enjoys getting their bike out and going around on it. And this week has been learning how to repair and look after their bike with the help of a neighbour, which has been really cool. So keeping the social distancing regulations, but the neighbour was helping and explaining what to do with the bike and how to fix it up. And sometimes it was going over the fence and coming back again, but all kept within the regulations and everything. Just what a great idea, really helped the neighbour. He shared his experience and the guy learned how to deal with his bike. Fantastic. Another idea, someone at Ignite was getting ready to do a special painting. I think it was for grandma, maybe it was for a birthday, I can't remember. But what a great idea to send somebody a painting or a craft that you've done, that you've made at home. Everybody loves something that's homemade. So you've got some time this week, why not do something like that? Okay, that's about it for me here. I'm going to go and sit somewhere that isn't as comfy as usual, and I will explain why when I see you in a minute. Hi guys. Well, the weather is so horrible out there today. My kids have justifiably kicked me out of the living room. They don't have many other places to go, so we thought we'd come and film at the top of the stairs. So different place to be anyway, another place in my house for you guys to see. This week when I was praying and I was chatting to God about what we would have a chat about today, I just couldn't get past the verses we've just started to look at with Life Team. We've started to look at 1 John 3. I'm barely going to make it past verse 1. They are some incredible verses, especially the first 3. Go take a look at them, and we're just going to get into verse 1 now. So 1 John 3 verse 1 says, "See what an incredible quality of love the Father has shown to us, that we would be permitted to be named and called and counted the children of God, and so we are." Wow. Do you know, it doesn't matter how old a Christian you are, how long you've been saved for, it is always good to just spend some time thinking about God's love and how much he loves us. What an incredible verse. Do you know, this is a letter that John wrote to the church or the churches in Ephesus who he had been looking after. At the time he wrote this, he was around 70 maybe. He'd spent that 3.5 years walking with Jesus when he was on the earth. And then he'd spent all those years afterwards spreading the gospel, looking after the churches, looking after the people. He was one of the oldest lived disciples, and he still was amazed and focused on God's love. In fact, in his gospel, love is mentioned 57 times, I understand, and that is more than it's mentioned in the entire other three gospels put together. And even in this short letter, this letter called 1 John that we're having a look at today, in 1 John, love is mentioned 46 times. It's a really short letter. It has only 5 chapters, and in my Bible, which has study notes too, it's only about 7 pages. But love is mentioned 46 times. So this amazingly mature Christian focuses on God's love. So maybe we should too, eh? The word right at the beginning of this is, I'm not exactly certain how to say it, but ideate. And it's the bit that's translated, it's in various different translations. It can be translated, look at this, behold, or in this amplified translation that I just read, it says, see what an incredible quality of love. That's John talking about God's love. Even at his age, even after all those years of knowing God and walking with him, he says, see what an incredible quality of love. It's just amazing the way he talks about God's love. And that's the way it should be for us all the time. We should be constantly surprised and amazed at God's love. There's another meaning to this word as well, as you know, there often is in the Greek. And ideat also means to form a mental image. In other words, to imagine this love that God has for us. It just means just take a moment, just let it sink in. This is God of the whole universe, and he loves us. It's this agape love that expects absolutely nothing in return, and he loves you just like that. I'm going to repeat that verse now, and I would just ask you, just close your eyes and just think about God's love for a minute whilst I reread it. See what an incredible quality of love the Father has shown to us, that we would be permitted to be named and called and counted the children of God, and so we are. What an incredible verse. I just can't get away from it this week. And you know, whatever you just imagined in your mind for God's love, whatever you were just feeling, you need to magnify that, because you won't have gotten a hold of it. You can't. Ephesians 3:18-19 says, then you will be empowered to discover what every Holy One experiences, the great magnitude of the astonishing love of Christ in all its dimensions. How deeply intimate and far-reaching is his love. How enduring and inclusive it is. Endless love beyond measurement that transcends our understanding. This extravagant love pours into you until you are filled to overflowing with the fullness of God. That's the Passion version. It is just an incredible version of that verse. What an amazing description of God's love and how he pours it into us. So if we just go back to 1 John 1 a second, he says, see what an incredible quality of love the Father has shown to us, that we would be permitted to be named and called children of God. And I thought, well, why? Why does that say be named and called? Doesn't that mean the same thing? No, it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. There are 2 meanings going on here. So you are named by your parents, aren't you? You have your Christian name and you have your family name, and you are named. You're part of the family. And that's the same with God. And we are part of his family. And we're going to learn, there's another verse later on that talks about being part of his household. We are part of God's family. So in that sense, we're named. But also, we are called by him. And this is an individual calling. You know, guys, God has called you and he loves you. I know some of you have been around for church for ages, that you come with your family on a regular basis, And you're just like, oh, well, I just come because my parents are here. God's got me because my parents come. I've been coming since I was a lump in my mum's tummy because God got my parents. No, God has called you. You don't come because your parents have been called. You come because he's called you personally. And his love, you're not just got an offshoot of his love that he's loving your parents and then a bit of it comes to you. No. He loves you with that love. He loves you personally and he's called you personally. Remember, you have your own faith, don't you? It's not your parents' faith, it's your faith. And we talked about faith a bit in when we met on Jitsi on Wednesday. And we talked about what would you put your faith in front of? We read the story of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. And we know that they would put their faith in front of their lives, that they would go into the fiery furnace. And they said, even if they didn't come out, even if God didn't save them, they would still do it. They would still worship him first. Now, for the chances are that not many of us will have to make that decision. But we did talk about other things you could put your faith in front of, didn't we? For example, would you put your faith in front of lying? Would you put your faith in front of a gossipy conversation that's going on? Would you be able to walk away from that? Would you put your faith in front of an 18 rated DVD or a computer game or something like that? Those are decisions we have to make every day. So don't forget, you've been called by God and your faith is your faith. Let's go back to 1 John again. So God has made us his children. That's what he says, doesn't he? And there's another verse in Ephesians that relates to us being children of God. It says, you are no longer foreigners outside of God's purpose. You are not aliens, but children of God, fellow citizens with all who belong to Christ. Together, you are God's people and members of his household. We are members of God's household, part of his family. In lots of places it says sons, but remember, we are all sons and daughters of God. God has, in a sense, adopted us. There's another verse in Ephesians that talks about that. We are adopted by God. That means he's chosen us, you and me. He's chosen us. We are special in his eyes, each and every one of us. If you remember, this whole word of adoption and the idea of adoption, when it was written down in the letter to the Ephesians, was based on the whole Roman Empire idea of it. And you know, there were Caesars and leaders of the Roman Empire who were adopted. And they actually did it as quite a standard thing. So if you were leading the Roman Empire and you had some children, or some sons in particular, who you thought, oh, not sure I would like them to run the country, then instead they would adopt somebody else, probably somebody a lot older, a close friend, a close politician, somebody who they worked with, who they knew would run the country they wanted it, the way they wanted it to be run after they died. And that happened on numerous occasions with these guys. This whole adoption thing meant you became fully part of the family, okay? So they would adopt someone, one of their political allies maybe, and he would then become the next in line to that throne, to that take over that empire. He would inherit everything that the people before him would have inherited. He would get all the money, the position, the finance, everything. Once he was adopted, he got everything that was coming to him as being part of that family. And that is how God has adopted us. That's how much he loves us. He has brought us right into his family, and we inherit absolutely everything that he's got for us. That's how much he loves us. What an amazing thing to think about. So if we just go back to thinking about God's love, I was thinking, is love something that you can actually see? Because a lot of us think about love as something that's a bit of a gooey feeling. Can we see it? Well, yes, of course we can see it, because we show our love in how we act towards others. And we see it in how others act towards us. Your family, your friends, everything like that. Whilst I've been thinking about all this, I kept getting pictures of toddlers and children. It's just such a good way of picturing God's love. So, do you know, when you were a child or when you were a toddler, maybe you fell over quite a lot, because toddlers do especially, and you just see it all the time. Parents just go and gather up their kids, and you see the love in action there as they look after their children, and they just set them up and, you know, do anything they need to, and before you know it, they're laughing and playing again. And that's just love in action, isn't it? And you can see it happening. What about people you don't know? Do you show love towards them? Are we showing love towards them? Can you show love towards them? Yes, of course you can. We've talked about that before, haven't we? And about loving your neighbours. And think about the parable of the Good Samaritan that Jesus told. Yes, we can show love to people, of course, that we don't know, and help them out in any way that's appropriate. 1 John 3:3 says, "And everyone who has this hope confidently placed in him purifies himself just as he is pure, holy, undefiled, and guiltless." Seeing God's love in us is when people see the way we behave and the things that we do. And we've talked about that over the last couple of weeks for a bit, haven't we? And we talked about it when we talked about the fruits of the Spirit too. You don't just feel love, you act on it. It's a very active thing. It's not just a passive thing. And we have God's love to show to the world. If you think again of a small child, you know, maybe even think of yourselves when you were younger. Do you know, how often did you do something just a little bit wrong? I'm sure you didn't do anything really bad. And you needed to say sorry. And your mum and dad would say, yeah, it's okay, we forgive you. And you would go with those little watery eyes that break every parent's heart, "Oh, I love you, Mum." And what your mum would sometimes have to say to you is, "I love you loads too." But you have to act right. You have to do the right things. And that's the way, isn't it, that we show our love. Do you know, as we grow up, we have to grow up in this behaviour. We have to grow up in our faith. We have to grow up in showing our love. And we need to be able to show that love, to show God's love to everyone around us. And that's fine. We can all do it. You might think, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can go on walking this way and being with God and showing his love. But you can, because God is always there to guide you and to lead you. And if you just listen to him, he will always help you in every situation. And you know why? Because he loves you that much. That's why. There's this great quote I was sent this week, which is a John Wesley quote, an amazing preacher, an amazing guy from the past. You should go look him up. He has, there's some incredible stories about his life there. And this is the quote: "Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can." What an amazing thing to say. But that is showing God's love. Doing everything we can for as long as we can, for all the people that we can. So, Ignite, I'm going to leave you with a couple of things to think about this week. This week, behold, imagine, meditate on God's love. Set yourself a reminder on your phone. Maybe first thing when you wake up in the morning or the afternoon. Think about God. Think about his love. Think about how much he loves you. Maybe go and find some Bible verses that you like that talk about his love. Look in John's Gospel. There's plenty to find there. Or think about this verse, 1 John 3:1. Remember, contemplate, meditate how much God loves you. This is God of the whole universe, and he has chosen to love you. See what that looks like to you. Talk to God about it. And then there's another thing. Let me just read you this verse. This is from the Truth version. This is 1 John 3:18. Dear children, it means nothing to say you love others. It is only your actions that show whether you truly love them or not. Do your actions, Ignite, do your actions truly show your love of God? Have a think about that this week too. That's a good thing to be thinking about as we go through this week. And speak to God about it. See what he's got to say about it. So, one more thing before I go. This week I've been spending some time listening to Elevation Worship's album, Graves into Gardens. And there's one song there. Do you know, sometimes you listen to some new songs and it takes you a while to just sort of get into them, or for you to just maybe just take the lyrics in, for them to sink in. This song, or it might be just a couple of songs put together, but it just hit me straight away. It just brought me straight into God's presence. And I would definitely recommend that you go look it up. So it's the last one on the album, I think, and it's called There Is a King, What Would You Do? Go look it up. Absolutely incredible. Definitely recommend that one to you. And the link will be down there in the comments section. Okay, that's me for now. Next week, hopefully I won't be sat at the top of the stairs and I'll find somewhere a little bit more comfy to talk to you. See you next week, guys. Bye.